Hi everyone, Cedric here from Ratings.com. We will be reviewing in this video the Sony X800D. It's our top pick this year if you're looking for a small TV. There are only two sizes for that model, 43 and 49, and they have different picture quality. The one we bought, the 43-inch, has a VA panel, while the 49-inch is IPS. I will point out the differences in the affected test throughout this video, but before doing that, let's get a closer look at the design. The Sony X800D has a very functional look. It is sturdy and it has a center stand, so you don't need a wide table. The bezel is slim, so the TV will blend into your room. It is relatively thin when looking at it from the side. Like all Sony TVs, the back of the TV is not polished. That doesn't matter though. It has more than enough inputs, but some of them are facing directly towards the back, which is not practical when mounting it to the wall. Now let's look at our testing. First, the contrast ratio. The 43-inch has a VA panel, so the blacks are quite good. The 49-inch is worse at this test though, and you can expect a contrast ratio about the same as the LG UH6500. It lacks local dimming, which is unfortunate, but understandable considering the price range of that TV. The edges of the screen are a bit darker. It also has a little bit of dirty screen effect created by a few patches of colors all over the screen. But it's not that obvious when watching normal content, and it is in line with other TVs in that price range. It handles motion blur well, without any significant trail following moving object. If you are curious, here's how we measure motion blur on TVs. We record 12 different transitions. For example, 20% to 100%, which is a dark gray to a pure white. So we display a dark gray on the screen, put the photodiode in front, and then we trigger the transition. The oscilloscope is going to record what happens during that transition. In this case, it goes from a dark gray to a pure white in about 12 milliseconds. So we do this for 12 different transitions, average it out, and that is the response time number that is shown on the website. The input lag is good at around 30 milliseconds in game mode. It is also consistent, even when you send in a 4K HDR signal, which is better than the high-end Sony TVs that have an older OS than this one. The 43-inch loses color at an angle, like every other VA panels. The 49-inch will maintain better colors, so if you sit at an angle, get the bigger 49 instead of the 43. The reflections are average, and it uses a semi-gloss finish. Its screen finish is pretty standard, so it will behave pretty much as you would expect when dealing with reflections. The peak brightness is average at around 375 nits. It is more than enough in a dark room, but not ideal in a bright living room. It is still better at HDR than the Samsung KU6300 since it has a wider color gamut. The colors will look more rich, so it is worth spending more to get the Sony X800D if you plan on using it for HDR. It uses Android OS version 6, which is an improvement over the version 5 that the other Sony TVs are using, but it is still quite a bit slow to navigate and not very user-friendly. The included remote is standard, without anything fancy on it. Overall, the Sony X800D is a good small TV, good motion handling, and it has a wide color gamut. But the 43-inch loses color at an angle, and it doesn't get very bright. There isn't much competition in that size range, since there are no small high-end TVs anymore. So this is the best one you can buy if you are looking for a small TV. Now for the questions. First, which one to buy between the Samsung KU6300 and the Sony X800D? So the Sony is the better TV, but only for HDR. So if you plan on using HDR, it's worth spending more for the Sony. Otherwise, get the cheaper Samsung KU6300. How to use the Xbox One S in HDR on the Sony X800D? First, make sure to use either HDMI port number 2 or 3, because the other one don't support the full bandwidth for HDR. Also, make sure to turn on Enhanced Format, which is a bit hidden, so I'm going to show you how to turn it on. Press the Home button, scroll down to Settings, External Inputs, and then under HDMI Signal Format, turn on Enhanced Format. Last question, is there a 43-inch TV with local dimming and 4K? In 2016, there's really not that many TVs with local dimming in that size range. There's the Vizio E and D series, but their local dimming is not really good. So that's it. If you have more questions, feel free to ask them in the comments of this video or on our website. And if you like this video, subscribe to our channel. And see you next time.